is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. It's a duck blur.
Very soon, gamers around the world will be able to go back to yesteryear, an iconic game, Ducktales. And that's even from a more iconic television show that I loved in my childhood. It's getting an HD remake, and Ray Jimenez, one of the producers on the game, is here today on VGS. Thank you so much for joining the show.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
So Ducktales Remastered, right? That's the title of this upcoming amazing product into nostalgia?
Yeah, Ducktales Remastered. I really wanted to make sure that users understood that they were getting almost a whole new product here.
Yeah, for those gamers who perhaps, weren't born in the 80s, weren't privy to the first time they get to play this sort of game, what is this game all about?
Oh, well, if you're a gamer now, whether you played the original DuckTales or not, it's like one of those games that it's the heritage games of the gaming industry.
Mm-hmm.
It really set a bar back in the day for platformers and licensed games, and it's just widely heralded as one of the best platforming games of all time, and it has some of the best music of all time. And what we've put together is what we hope a very faithful reproduction of this in a more for contemporary systems, but we've added a ton of content that really brings the DuckTales to life. So if anything, it's just like to know your roots as a gamer, that this is where a lot of inspiration for a lot of the games that you've played come from.
Yeah, you mentioned it there, but for a lot of gamers, this is, like you said, the holy grail of that sort of platforming fun, that style of gameplay. What are you doing to make sure that the game still feels authentic to those people who would freak out if it didn't sort of feel like the original DuckTales that they played? And, how do you still make it work for 2013 audiences, sort of thing?
Right. So the developer, WayForward Technologies, that was actually step number one, is how do you make the game in their engine feel just like you're playing the NES one, even without any visuals or sound or any other cool things they're doing, how do you make it feel right? And essentially what they did is they were able to make a crude version of the Transylvania level and Scrooge in their own engine, and then they were able to play that side by side with the NES version, playing with the same controller and getting it and tuning their engine so they actually can do it at the same time with one controller. So that's like a lot of dedication there. So I mean, being able to play it with the NES right next to it and controlling them identically really makes the game feel right. And these guys just really understand platforming games and what makes them right, how to make the collision box make it feel right. So they know what they're doing. There's a lot of esoteric secrets out there and how to do that, and these guys know how to do it.
Well, visually, from getting my hands on it at E3, it's amazing how the visuals kind of bridge the gap between that original, the 2D DuckTales that we have and what we have today. How would you describe the HD remake in terms of what you're going for visual fidelity? Because I think, am I on base here where it still kind of looks as if there are some great 2D elements of the original that you've kind of amped up in a really interesting way?
Right. So on the visual side, the key to that was basically going through the NES version and trying to determine what inspired those levels. And then going to that inspiration, a lot of it came from the Carbarks comic books or the original cartoon, going to what we cited as the inspiration and then juicing that up, using the high fidelity that we're able to reproduce now. So, I mean, that was, even going into Scrooge, that was what they did. They looked through all the different kind of Scrooges that they could have done, and they went through a lot of revisions, but then made sure that it fit the same proportions that the original did, so that it felt right, so that it had this like 2-block high proportion to it, and that basically leads to the gameplay feeling correct. So it was really trying to determine what the inspiration was and then going from there.
Where does the game sit on the line of the title of remastered? Because sometimes that means you're taking a great old title and it's a completely new sort of game, looks different, plays different. For the DuckTales take, What does that title of remastered mean to you guys? Because it looks, from what we've seen, very similar and plays very similar to the first one. Are you going more in that sort of way, or what does it mean to you guys?
This actually is a pretty interesting question because it's evolved a lot over the course of the project, and I think what we ended up with was a product that where we took the framework and the gameplay and what was great about the original NES version, and then dialed up the Ducktales immersion in that. So by adding all the voice acting and bumping up the music and expanding on the story to make every level feel like an episode. We were able to take that feeling of the gameplay from the NES and just make it feel like a DuckTales show. So, for those of you that have played the original game, and as soon as you pick this up, it'll feel right. You'll know where things are. You'll know where the diamonds are, where some of the secrets are. But it's going to be presented in such a fashion that you've never seen before because, just having the voice actors alone, talk about the story and explain what's going on and narrate stuff, it really adds a whole other dynamic to the game that wasn't available before. So we're really bringing DuckTales the show to life in the form of video game.
Absolutely cannot wait for it. You mentioned a little earlier that for the remaster Take a DuckTales, you're really focusing on the sound design. You talked about it a little bit there, bringing in the voice actors. What other ways are you making sure that, DuckTales HD really comes up tops when it comes to sound design?
Yeah, so the team is, they're huge fans of the original game. And the sound designer, the composer especially too, being a video game composer, that the original soundtrack was one of his main inspirations for his profession. So their whole methodology as far as sound was to use modern compositions and modern sounds and modern fidelity and to update everything, but everything still has a very 80s or retro sound to it. I mean, there are parts in the game that still sound that you could almost swear is an 8-bit soundtrack, but it really isn't. We're really using a lot of the newer instruments that you see in typical bigger soundtracks, but it's all arranged in a way that just sounds classic. And the composers and the sound guys are just really good at that. Even like the pogo, the sound of the pogo is going to be it's almost a near reproduction of the original sound, but it just has a little more bass to it and sounds better and it's not just a really high tinny MIDI sound, but it'll sound better on your TVs now. So like the rest of the game, is how do you bring the original forward but keeping all the elements that made the original cool.
Yeah, those little tiny details, like you said, of making the pogo stick sound that much better but still original. Absolutely amazing. Really, really happy that you're doing that, because that, I think, for a lot of gamers, that is what they connect with a lot of these old games. When I'm looking back at playing the first DuckTales, it was the sounds of those things that the instances that I remember more than, the entire experience. And it looks like you guys have, you've understood that, and you're really grabbing it by the throat and making sure you got it for this game.
Yeah, but we did change things where we felt they needed to be changed.
Of course, yeah.
About the sound, the original one had a very annoying death sound for every character that was really annoying and it happened all the time. We made sure that we corrected that.
Yeah, well, I good on you on that one. Now, it is coming out very, very soon, and you talked about it a little bit there. Can we look forward to, new content, new levels, exciting new ways to play in this old sort of gameplay that we really, really like?
Yeah, absolutely. The overall goal was to do about a 30-70 split-ish of new content being the 30% and 70% being the old content, meaning the layout, the level layout. About 30% of it is going to be new. We did some tweaks that we hope feel better. They're all in the same vein of the original game, but we basically took the things that were cool in the original levels, like different moments, and expanded upon them, made them more. We've also added a few new areas. One of the most notable being being able to jump and swim in Scrooge's money bin. But there's also a new final level that's totally new that leads to the boss. I think that will be a cool treat for those that still play the NES game to this day, to actually get absolutely new content. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from people that are have just finished it around here, and they like really like that last level.
Well, it's good. It seems like you guys have taken an old classic, treating it with respect, but still want to make sure that, you know, it's playable today and it's still a lot of fun. So cannot wait to play it. I know it's coming out soon. When can gamers get their hands on DuckTales Remastered?
PlayStation and PC for August 13th, and then the 360 version is coming out on September 11th.
All right, so there you go. And aside from DuckTales, if this one goes well, can Capcom look forward to more HD remakes coming in the future?
It's hard to say if it's a possibility, but it's definitely, the better it does, the bigger the chance.
So there you go. If you want to play these old games that you loved with an entirely new and reinvigorated take, make sure you pick up DuckTales Remastered. Thank you again, Ray, for taking the time to talk to us. Really do appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
I'm Andy Borkowski for VGS. Make sure you pick up DuckTales HD.